Um, Thank you, Kelly. It's great to be invited back and to be the baby of the crowd today. It's very flattering. What I'm going to talk about is, New Avenue is a company that I started in 2009, and we're a software company, but we're somewhat different from most in that we deal with construction and nitty-gritty construction of home remodeling. But before I go into the last slide, I'll get into what the business does pretty briefly, but before I do that, I want to talk a bit about the history of housing in America. And I'm going to frame it around this house, which is the house that I grew up in. That's actually my family there a couple holidays ago in Buffalo, which has the snow in the winter that we're all known for. This is what I would consider pretty much an average American house, but to me it was everything. It was a place where my brothers and sister and I, played kick the can in the street. We rode our bikes to school. My dad walked 10 minutes to work, and we had pretty much what I consider a slice of the American dream. But despite how special it was to me, what's interesting, I think, is it's actually an incredibly average house. It actually came out of a Sears catalog brochure in 1910, and there are thousands of these scattered around the country. So what happened, though, and the reason I want to frame housing in America around my house in this particular catalog is because I think there's been several revolutionary transformations in housing in the past century. Starting in 1910, what Sears did was it standardized the production of housing, and it lowered the cost so that pretty much anyone could build a house. Starting in around 1950, that was matched with financing when the VA started guaranteeing loans for soldiers coming back from World War II. And that really went completely mainstream when the government, through Fannie and Freddie and everything else, guaranteed almost every mortgage in the country, which is how we have bought houses for decades now. Combined between the standardized production, the first big revolution, and then the standardized financing, we got into a situation where for decades we've had $1 trillion a year pouring into housing. So what that's done is it's set us up at a place where we now are in the middle of, or the beginning, I would say, of what I think is going to be the third massive shift, which is the reinvention of how we use these production-built and production, standardized financing, houses that have used standardized financing. And to put that in perspective, what this third shift is going to look like, this is the scale of the U.S. housing market. The blue circle is 80 million single-family homes, like the one I grew up in. Those are suburbs across the country. The orange circle is the 24 million of them who actually want to transform their house from single-family to multi-generational. And this is what New Avenue does. We make it easier for people who are living in single-family homes to do a major addition, a major remodel, or the most common thing that we're involved in is a backyard cottage or an in-law sort of house. The problem that we face is that when people get to be, most people that are in that orange circle are baby boomers or seniors, a lot of them actually widows, who are terrified of the concept of dealing with building permits, managing an architect, managing a contractor, and basically going through the nightmare of a remodel that is pretty much the standard practice for a remodel. Two thoughts on the scale of the housing industry. That little circle, the 500,000, that's the total number of homes that are listed on Airbnb globally, which just raised money at a $10 billion valuation. And the little green dot is 10,000 homes. For New Avenue to be $1 billion business, we need to work with that many homeowners out of that entire orange circle. So the numbers are just staggering. But getting back to sort of reality around what this is occurring within that orange circle, or what the people inside that 24 million homes, which I should add, that's a third, 30% of the homes in the country. We did some research at Cal when we were starting the business to get to that number. It was later repeated a few years later by a professor over at the planning school who came in at the exact same number. So it's been published and peer-reviewed that it's pretty much a massive shift. And this is what it really looks like when someone transforms their single-family house. This is a classic Berkeley bungalow. It's literally across the street from the Claremont Hotel. And it's one of the earlier projects that we were involved in. The client is Susan, and her motivation was 100% exposure to her grandkid. That's what she wanted. She lived in that house by herself. She wanted to tear down the little garage in the back and build a little cottage like that she could move into. The thinking behind that was she was going to give the house to her daughter and her son-in-law and the grandkid, and they were going to live together as 3 generations and basically improve their connection to each other and sort of enhance the life of all three generations together. The social motivation is primary, but secondarily, there's this financial thing that's just almost astounding. Between deferred or elimination of a second house and the mortgage for it, and the elimination of the taxes that go with that, and daycare and assisted living, a family like this ends up saving over $100,000 a year, which adds up to over $1 million within pretty short period of time, which is a transformational sum. But again, it's not really a financial motivation for most people. It's a social. It's about how people really prefer to live. So the way we serve somebody like Susan and the 24 million other people that are trying to transform their single-family house, and what New Avenue does is we've got a very familiar-looking sort of social page well, there's basically three things we do. We've got a very familiar social-looking page where people collaborate between husband and wife, and then architect and contractor. And then the second thing we do is the architects and contractors that are allowed to participate on this page all meet a certain, they're vetted and qualified, and they meet a certain standard that they have to perform in order to participate in our program. And then the third thing we do is, you can't see it here because it's designed to be friendly and easy to use, but there's some real teeth behind this, and there's a data-driven process where all of the contracts and accounting and money that moves around is all set into a very structured process so that projects that are going through our system can't get out of control. So in other words, they have to come in on time and on budget for the people that are in the network to stay there. So it's a pretty strong offering that we provide. And we've worked with 90 clients. We've got roughly 24 million to go. So we figured a lot of it out though, so we're sort of in the growth phase, I would say. And the last thing, well, I'd close on 2 points. One is I can't resist inserting something about beyond yourself. And confidence without attitude. So part of Haas, the whole idea of confidence, and the reason that I can say with some confidence that we've got a chance at touching and helping the 24 million people, is that people at Berkeley have provided me the resources to really get New Avenue going. My co-founder is a Berkeley grad who's an undergrad that I met. First 2 investors that we have are Berkeley grads. And our board member, who's actually a co-founder with Juan of Zip Realty, who's also one of our early investors, took a company public. So we've gotten the resources here to really have the confidence to do something substantial. The without attitude part comes from the fact that at Berkeley, 90 homes might be a nice, decent business. That's not what people look to from here. People at Berkeley look to touch the 24 million people, and actually that's the standard that we're held to. So I think that's really what I want to close on, is Berkeley is a humbling place, and that's where the without attitude part comes in. So on that, thank you.